Creating Our Future is an opportunity for you to tell us what researchers in Ireland should explore to create a better future. Every day, world-class researchers in Ireland are generating new knowledge and are making discoveries that impact our lives. This is your chance to let them know what is important to you. How can you get involved? The most important thing you can do is submit an idea that you think could inspire researchers. To do that, simply go to creatingourfuture.ie and tell us your idea. Then, talk about it. Share your ideas with friends, family and colleagues and encourage them to do the same. You can also join the many conversations with researchers and others at some of the events being hosted online and in person all over the country. What happens next? Every idea will be read. Independent experts from a broad range of backgrounds will shape the ideas into a report for government. The report will act as a book of inspiration for researchers and government. It will help to ensure that the research that matters to you is being carried out. Join Ireland's biggest brainstorm by visiting creatingourfuture.ie and tell us what researchers in Ireland should explore to create a better future.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Emer O'Neill, and welcome to a very special event. I'm here live from the Mermaid Arts Centre in Bray. Creating Our Future presents Ireland 2021, the experiences of Ireland's Black community. We'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our in-person audience. Thank you for coming. And also socially distanced, thank you very much. And of course, our digital audience joining us on YouTube Live. Now, as one of the 4 Creating Our Future campaign ambassadors, I have had the great pleasure of being the MC this evening and facilitator for our event, which, as the title suggests, is part of Creating Our Future, the campaign. So what is the campaign all about? Creating Our Future is a Government of Ireland campaign that aims to stimulate a national conversation that generates over 10,000 ideas from the public to inform the direction of research in Ireland. The campaign is being run by the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science. While we might not always think about it, research and innovation affect nearly every part of our lives. Even just think about it with the COVID-19 pandemic in particular, it has shown the importance and value of research and innovation, medically, socially, politically and economically. Ideas are the starting point for all research and innovation. Anyone, anywhere, can have an idea that inspires research and innovation. It could be based on an opportunity or a challenge that someone has identified in their own life, or for their community, for Ireland, or even for the world. It could even just be based on a topic that someone is curious or passionate about. Creating Our Future wants to hear all of the ideas, whatever the facet of life they may relate to. There is no bad ideas. Creating Our Future officially launched at the end of July 2021, and since then we've been engaging with people from all over Ireland to capture their ideas with researchers and what researchers should explore to create a better future for us. Our Creating Our Future roadshow has visited over just about every country in Ireland. It has, in fact, visited every country in person and or online, and generations, and to try and meet as wide and diverse of communities, groups, businesses and organisations as part of what we're calling Ireland's biggest brainstorm. Ideas can be submitted right up until the end of November, so get your thinking caps on. All ideas, including ideas that you come up with tonight, will then be reviewed by the expert committee, and a full report will be submitted to the government to inspire future research in Ireland. The campaign has set itself the great goal of trying to reach a really broad and diverse audience, ensuring that we hear voices from people from all over Ireland, from every village, town, city, from every age demographic, and from every background. And to do this, it has attracted for us four great ambassadors to support efforts to engage the public, each from a different background and representing a different aspect of Irish life and research. So each of our 4 ambassadors play a unique role in bringing the campaign to life for their respective audience. And we're running key events like tonight's with each of these ambassadors. we have biochemist Luke O'Neill, who I'm sure everyone is familiar with over the last 18 months, and we are of no relation. We have academic and author of Notes to Self, Emily Pine, County Clare hurler and microbiologist Shane O'Donnell, and then myself, Emer O'Neill. I'm delighted to have been asked to be part of the campaign and to be an ambassador for this campaign, because I'm really passionate about ensuring that the campaign hears from about all aspects of Ireland. So including some topics that we're sometimes afraid maybe to talk about or to tackle, and I suppose that's where tonight's event really comes in. As we know, research has the power to not only educate and inform, but also to assist in solving challenges, seizing opportunities, and ultimately creating a better future for all. Research begins with ideas, and ideas begin with discussions. It's only when we discuss issues openly that we can shed a light on opportunities and challenges that really do need to be addressed as a society. It's through discussions that we can find nuggets and gems of ideas that inspire researchers, inspire research, and ultimately create a better world. Over the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to do just that, and we're going to have discussions that are based on lived experiences of Ireland's Black community. Not about Ireland's Black community, but with Ireland's Black community. It's important to share our stories, to bring to life our experiences and often shared experiences as people of colour in Ireland, and to educate and to inform and to highlight opportunities and challenges that research and policies can address. I'm delighted to be joined today by a trio of very special guests to share their lived experiences as people of colour here in Ireland. We'll discuss emerging issues and what research can do to tackle these. So from the world of sport, we have Westmeath Footballer and personal trainer Boidu Sayeh. From the world of politics, we have Ireland's first female Black Mayor, the Lord Mayor of Longford, Cllr Uruemu Adejinmi. And from the world of academia, we have Lilian Nwanze Akobo. I'd like to take each of these in turn for an in-depth conversation about their experiences and their lives before we will then bring together the whole group as a panel for a Q&A, and then we'll have a fun interaction and brainstorm together for ideas for this campaign. So for the live audience here in the Mermaid, we'll have a COVID-friendly microphone roving around, so all you have to do is just put your hand up and ask if you have a question or an answer to contribute, and please do. And then also, for those of you online, at any time, you can ask your question using your comment function in YouTube. And you could also tweet, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever your social media channel is that you choose to use. And if you just use hashtag creating our future. So before I bring out our first guest, I just want to share a little bit about myself and my story and why tonight's topic is very close to my heart. I am born and raised here in Bray. I've actually been on the stage doing musicals and dramas many a time, so it's a privilege to be here because it's been a long time. But I have a mother that is Irish and I have a father that is Nigerian. And my mom is from Wexford, my dad's from Nigeria, and thus came me. I grew up here in Bray, and we were not a very diverse town. I think things have definitely changed, but in my activist work over the last year or so, I have really found that things may have changed on the surface in terms of ethnicity and a lot more diversity, but I think when we look below the surface, there's still a lot of work to be done. It was with the death of George Floyd that my activist work began. I had never actually spoken out about any of my issues growing up in terms of racism and as a teenager and as an adult. But I began to speak out a lot about that. And with some friends here in Bray, we started Bray for Love campaign. We put stickers on doorways to show solidarity because, unfortunately, when I started speaking out, myself and my family began to get a lot of harassment. My house was egged on my son's 6th birthday. There was acid poured on my neighbor's car. the sergeant came to our house and said it was a mistaken identity. We both had SUVs, and they were an elderly couple. It made no sense, and it came with a string of different harassment that had happened. My name was spray painted all over Bray, my hometown, with nasty messages and derogatory slurs towards me, with always the message, all lives matter at the end. And I think the idea was to try and silence me, but in fact, it put a fire in my belly, and the support that I got from the people of Ireland was just out of this world. There were so many times that I wanted to curl up in my bed, pull the duvet over my head and say, not today, and it's not for me. This isn't my job. Someone else has to do this. I can't. I just had my daughter. She was literally a month old, and I was suffering with postnatal depression as well. So it was a tough time, but with the support of people, constant messages, and I'm talking about handwritten messages, emails, on social media, the support, it's what kept me going, really and truly. And I'm very, very thankful for that. With our Brave for Love, we tried to bring our community together, and eventually a lot of that harassment did stop. So it was great, but it's something that does continue a lot on social media, and that's something, you know, we will get into as the night goes on. Things that I have taken part in over the course of the last 2 years that are really important to me. One was I was invited to take part with the INTO, an organization for primary school teachers, and they asked if I would get involved in creating a prevention and dealing with racism in schools. And I was so glad and honored to be asked, because a lot of time these modules are created by people that don't have the lived experience. So to be able to work on that and to know that there is now a tool for primary school teachers to be able to access and help them, because I've been teaching for 12 years and I have never been trained in how to deal with racial issues in schools, how to see it, how to prevent it, and then how to deal with it. And I think it's a huge ask of our teachers to have to do that with zero training. So that module, and I hope there are many more to follow for the secondary school level and further. Over the pandemic, I had the pleasure of reaching about 2,000 primary and secondary school students, giving an anti-racism workshop. And from that, I think I took that the future is bright. We have a lot of great minds that cannot comprehend why anyone would treat anybody else differently because of the color of their skin. And if you do remember, during the Black Lives Matter rallies, it was our teenagers, our college goers that we saw out there. And it makes me really excited for the future of our country, to be honest. I've also, along with a member, Thomas Emmett from Brave for Love, he also helped me create, it's taken us a year, but we've created an anti-racism policy for schools. This is something that Simon Harris has said he would like to get behind with us. And I've also sent the document on to the NCCA and also to Norma Foley. So we wrote this document because we don't have one in this country. And I started in North Wicklow Educate together, a secondary school here in Bray, a brand new school we had 40 kids, I think, in the whole school in our first year. But we were asked as teachers to write policies. And it was eye-opening to me, you know, now, I suppose, when I look back. But there are policies for literally everything. Healthy eating, code of conduct, anti-bullying. There's an in-depth, I'm talking like 8 to 12 page policy nearly about everything you can think of, but none for anti-racism. And we saw something there, and we decided that needed to be fixed. So we spent the last year creating this anti-racism policy, and unfortunately we found it very difficult to find content from Ireland. So we used content from the States, from New Zealand, Australia, from England, just to create this document. And it's something that we want for the whole country to have for free. Something that they can either just take and use verbatim, or they can take and adapt it and manipulate it to whatever way so that they can use it in their school. Because at the end of the day, what I find hard is any organization having people, a large group of people or any people at all, but not having an anti-racism policy in place. Because how can you approach somebody and tell them that they have done something that is racist or gone against some kind of code when we don't actually have any reference to go by? So I hope that those of you that are watching and here this evening will spread the word, and hopefully we can get a policy that's worthy to represent anti-racism in our schools here in Ireland. I'm also the author of The Same But Different. It's a children's book that I wrote, and it came out about a month ago. I designed the book around me, little Emer, and just kind of growing up and being different, obviously in a predominantly white country, and being stared at, being pointed at, struggling with friendship groups and the likes. It is talking about racism. I do mention the color of my skin, but the book is about just being different. And I do believe that the book is accessible to everybody. I wanted everybody to be able to relate to it in terms of we have all felt different. We've all felt ostracized. We've all felt left out. And once you know what that feeling is, it will help you to understand how somebody else feels when they're left out of a community. And I've made it as representative as possible. I have a young child in a wheelchair, a child with a cochlear implant, and a child with a hijab, a child with glasses, a child with red hair, a child with blonde hair, as inclusive as I can, that many children will be able to see themselves represented and get this message. My main message from the book is, we are all the same but different, and what a boring place the world would be if it was any other way. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce my first guest. All of the reasons I've just expressed are the reasons why I've wanted to be a part of this campaign, and the same goes with our guests. And so, if you are ready for our first guest, I would like to please welcome Westmeath footballer and personal trainer, Boidu Sayeh. How are you doing, pal?
Good. How are you?
Great to have you.
Thanks, Emil.
How are you feeling?
A bit nervous.
Bit nervous? Don't be.
Good,
Speak
good.
from the heart and you won't go wrong. So you and I talked, it must have been a year ago, I'd say. We did an Instagram Live together.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by your story. So I would love it to come from your mouth, if you'd tell people a little bit about your life in Liberia, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I grew up in Liberia. Like at the time when I was growing up in Liberia, it was one of the poorest countries in the world. Actually, the poorest country in the world. Still is one of. But at the time, it was the poorest country in the world, and there was a civil war that was going on at the time. It was just ending, but everyone was trying to recover, and there was still a little bit of troubles going on. So, like, I was lucky enough that I was living with my parents, living with my mom and dad. But when my mother passed away, so I ended up living with my dad. And then he couldn't handle, taking care of us. So I ended up moving to a few of my sister's places. And then we were being moved around a lot because the troubles were, happening in different areas. So you have to move from different area to another area. So I never really had
What year are we talking?
This is in 2003, 2004, 2002.
And when you're saying war, you're talking about the war where people were murdered?
Yeah, people getting shot. You could hear gunshots in the background. If you hear gunshots and getting closer, you got to move. So, we'd pack our bags and I was moved away to somewhere else. So that was kind of my childhood growing up. So I never really had a childhood per se. Like, I remember going to school one day and then being sent home from school because the rebels were coming in. We had to go home. And that was just the way I grew up. And I was fortunate enough to have an uncle that was living in Ireland at the time, and then married to Therese, and married to an Irish woman. And, she said to him, would you have a nephew living in Liberia. Would you love to bring him to Ireland?
Yeah.
And he
Get
said,
him to
yeah,
safety.
of course. I was like, of course, yeah. So he came over as my dad, my Liberian dad. They're all my dads, but like my Liberian dad, could he bring me over? And he said, yeah, of course. He was like, the first thing first, he's like, just take my child. And he came over to me and told me I was moving to Ireland, and I was like, yes.
So you, without your brothers and sisters, without your dad?
Just me on my own, yeah, just
and
me
you
on
were
my
what,
own.
8?
I was 8, like I was 7 at the time, so I was going to be turning 8.
Wow.
And he was
so
like,
you were my son's age. I'm just trying to imagine my son going through that.
yeah,
that
exactly,
age.
yeah. So, you know, he said you're going to Ireland, and I was like, yes. You know, as a kid living in Africa, the only place we know is America, and then we know all the different, you know, soccer teams, but we all think that's in America. So
Everything's America.
everything's
If you're not
America.
in Africa, you're in America.
That's it.
One or the other.
So there's me thinking I was going to America, and fortunately landed in, you know, Westmeath in freezing cold. Freezing
you
cold
said
country.
it best. The United States
The
of
United
Rosemount.
States of Rosemount. Yes. So I
Not
landed
quite the US, but
not quite the US,
but nonetheless better than where you had come from.
Exactly.
So what was that like? I mean, you're 7 years old. You have none of your immediate family, bar Ben, your uncle, which I'm sure maybe you didn't have that good of a relationship since he was living in Ireland. What was your first thoughts? Were you excited or were you scared out of your wits?
Yeah, I was scared, but I was more excited. Like, you know, even though I was so young, I knew I was living in the poorest country. I knew that I could go some days without eating anything. I could go some days being scared, being moved around, and I knew myself, like, this is not what I want to be.
You knew it wasn't normal.
You know, I knew this is not normal life. This is
Okay.
not what you want to live. And when my uncle came over and said, you're going to have a better life, I believed him. So, you know, the nerves are gone. I was more excited to come over. I was,
anything.
you know, over the moon to be over in a different country. So
You
know,
talk a lot about being very well accepted in your town. Talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah, so when I arrived to Ireland, obviously I had to go to school. I was only 8, and my sister was already going to school here, so I ended up going to the same school. So it's called Rosemount National School, and so you know, it was my first time. I remember my first day in Rosemount School, and everyone got together and really welcomed me in. You know, I was my sister was mixed like you, and she was the first, say, black person in the school. But then when I came in...
So her mum and dad, or your Uncle Ben...
Yeah, my Uncle Ben and Trey's had a child.
Who are now mum and dad.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so they have a kid who's only a year older than me.
Yeah.
And she was in the school first, so she was the first black person. But then when I came, everyone was like, whoa.
Oh, wait, that's what a black person...
Yeah, it's like, whoa, that's what an actual black person looks like. Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow,
Did you get a lot of stares and...
Yeah, so I got a lot of, you know... Like, I don't blame any of the kids because they're all young, so I got a lot of people looking, looking at you, feeling your hair, being like, oh, why is it so different than me? Yeah. Why is he like brown? What's wrong? Can it come off? Or stuff like that.
And did you have those conversations?
Oh, you got a load of them, and you know, I got sat down with my mom and dad, and they're like, you know, don't worry about it, just kids being curious and blah blah blah. So I was like, that's fine. Yeah. So I just took it on board. It didn't really, you know, it wasn't something that affected me too much. You obviously get that, but then, you know, you get a little bits of that, but then you get a lot of positive things as well, like how people really welcome me into the community and really, you know, handed me the GAA sport. They're like, learn how to play this, you know. Yeah. And when I learned to play that, I got welcomed even more into the community, and people really got around and really made me feel at home.
I mean, you don't see many black men playing GAA. Yeah. Was this something at that time? So what year are we in now? You pick up a Gaelic jersey.
Yeah, this is 2004, 2005, 2006.
Were you seeing people? Were you seeing yourself reflected in your team and other teams you played against, or were you a minority?
No, I was a minority. I was the only. I was the only one in my club playing at the time, and playing with other clubs as well. I think there could be another 1 or 2 black kids playing with different teams as well, but that was it. Yeah. You know, you were pretty much on your own if you're playing against. Yeah. Any other teams or counties, you're on your own. Yeah. So it was daunting. It was scary enough, but you know, it's something you really you get over. You know, you don't really think about that when you're playing sport, especially someone like me who's ultra competitive. Yeah. All I want to do is win.
That's all you're focused on.
That's all I'm focused on. I'm focused on winning this game and not too much on what someone is. You know.
I mean, the one great thing about sport is it's a universal language. It allows you to come to another country, and even if you don't speak the same language, you know, the game doesn't change. But you picked up a sport that generally wouldn't necessarily be one that someone coming from another country to live in Ireland would. Generally, maybe they'd go and play, soccer.
Yeah.
But you got into a really traditional Irish sport.
Yeah.
Were you welcomed into that, do you think, by fans and players? Or
Yeah, I was welcomed into it by people who, knew me, but people who didn't really know who I was and was, questioning, like, why is he here? Because they never really seen it before. So I definitely have gotten, people saying, like, why is he playing? Or, calling you a different name, calling you names and stuff like that, And it's something that it hits you as well. You have a second thought, like, should I really be playing this sport?
What kind of names?
It'd be like, why is that, black lad, that nigga over there playing, why the fuck is he here, whatever.
Singled out.
Yeah, being singled out, being singled out a lot.
What number are you?
I can be number 4, number 7, whatever.
Right,
I could be
so not number 4, but the black lad.
The black guy,
Yeah.
Or.
And how did that make you feel?
It was kind of like, I know I'm black, you don't have to point it out. Do you know what I mean? I'm the only one.
All right,
here.
Captain Obvious, thanks.
Yeah, like,
wait, what? Are you serious?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of like, it's sometimes the way some people say things. It's not only, oh, there's the black guy over there. I don't mind that, you know what I mean? It's like, why the fuck is that black guy over there?
There's a negative
connotation. And kind of like an angry way of saying it that, you
this
feel
is
like.
our sport.
You feel like, you're kind of like, Jesus, is it that bad that I'm playing this?
Yeah.
And, I tried my best not to let it overcome me, and it didn't. So
I mean, you've been hugely successful in your career. And I remember actually talking to you because I'm not sure who now, you tell the story better, but the piece that was done on you and it went up on a social media platform, and you tell us the rest. Yeah,
so this is a thing that happened, and I don't like going back talking about it because it's not happening anymore, which is great to see. But I remember when we were playing a minor game, like we were all 16, 17 at the time, minor game, and one of our players, had a bit of a scruffle with another player, and this was in Meath at the time, and the two lads were going at it or whatever, and one of the Meath players did like a monkey noise and a monkey sign to one of our players, and our managers and our players and everyone kind of lost there, like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And there was a big row, and I was going to go in, and my player was like, no, don't bother, man, it's okay, whatever. And I was like, okay, fine, what's going on? And so that happened, and fast forward, couple of months later, not much was done about it.
Okay.
It was like, oh, let's forget about
under
that.
the
Happened,
rug a little bit.
We'll give him a couple of weeks off, and he's not allowed to play for a few weeks.
Oh, so he did get sanctioned.
Oh yeah, he got sanctioned. Even the lad who got the monkey sign did to him got sent off in the match.
Wow.
And it was just something.
He probably reacted.
He reacted, and it was something that happened that the referee didn't know how to deal with. And panicked on the spot.
Well, you've hit something you've hit the nail on the head there, because the referee was unsure how to handle that situation, and that's fair, because I think a lot of people are unsure how to handle situations that involve racial instance. It puts people's backs up. You don't know what the right or the wrong thing to do. What would your advice be to people, if they feel like they've been in a situation like that and not knowing what to do?
Yeah, like I'd say, talking to someone isn't a crime, Like, if you're really curious of, what way to say things or how to word things, if you talk to someone, they will tell you. They'll be like, man, I don't mind you calling me black. That's fine. Yeah. Just the way you say it. That's another thing. Yeah. And you know it in your head. Or certain things you say that you think is a joke. It could be, the Irish humor is great, but sometimes it can be a lot really, really offensive. Yeah. And they might not think they're offensive, and then being called out on it is a bad thing. But if you talk to someone like, man, I said this, is it offending you? Whatever. It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like,
such great points.
Communication is key.
Just talk about it, because I do feel people are nearly afraid to say the word black. It's like it's taboo. It's a bad word. It's like black, and it shouldn't be that way. I feel like as I grew up, I always felt like I wanted to hide my colour as much as possible and not make other people feel uncomfortable. But in fact, what we needed to do was talk about it, not have it as this pent-up thing that's in a room that everybody's thinking but not saying nearly.
Yeah.
So I think you hit the nail on the head there. And like that, you're saying, come talk to me. If you are interested about my heritage or why I'm here in Ireland or why I'm playing Gaelic, you know, everybody is different, though.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah,
thing. You know,
that's it,
some
yeah.
people may not want that, but I feel to take those steps, for me anyway, it shows that you have respect and that you want to educate yourself and learn. You know, if there was one thing that you could or you wish that people knew, what is it?
About me.
No, just in general, about
Yeah.
being a black person in Ireland. What would you like people to know?
Like, I think people know already, but, you know, just because someone's a, you know, a different color doesn't mean, like, it's not their home, you know? Like, I've been living here longer than I ever lived in Liberia, and Ireland is actually more my home than Africa. Do you know what I mean? I'm more Irish than I'm African. Like, talk like an Irish person.
You certainly
So,
do.
like, do you know, like, even when you come across another person who's a different, you know, background than you, or different, doesn't mean they're not from here.
Yeah,
you
don't
know what
make
I mean?
assumptions.
Don't make assumptions.
Yeah, it can be
Do you
quite
know what I mean?
hurtful.
Yeah,
Because
so-
this is your home ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
Boidu, again, a great chat with you. Thank you so much for being so honest and open with us and sharing your experiences. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a million.
I wish I could give
Appreciate
you a
it.
hug.
I know,
but-
I know.
Air hug.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you. Okay.
And best of luck with everything in the future.
Thanks a million. Thank you.
Boidu is now doing personal training. Could do it a few sessions myself, I think. But anyway, that was lovely. Thank you so much to Boidu. It's not easy to put your heart in your sleeve. Now, my next guest that I'm delighted to welcome is Lord Mayor of Longford, Cllr Uruemu Adejinmi, and I'm delighted to sit down and chat with this amazing woman. Imagine the first black female mayor ever in Ireland. Uruemu, how are you?
Great, Eva. Thanks.
So
for
glad to
having
have you here. So, listen, I wanted to start, I suppose, we'll get right into it. You were born and raised in Nigeria, am I correct? Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and how you ended up over here.
Yes, so born in the southern part of Nigeria in a city called Warri in Delta State. The second of 7 children, 5 girls, 2 boys, educated from primary through to 3rd level. Both my parents were educated, so it was very important in our household for everybody to get an education. So I went to boarding school for my secondary education. And I don't know how much people know about Nigeria, but it's a very ethnically diverse country where we have, I think, over 50 languages, and it's very hard for people to understand each other. Whereas compared to Ireland, it'd be people, you can distinguish people by their accent.
Yes.
You know, so
Which is something you pride yourself on now, because you actually can hear an accent and say, ooh, that's the Cork accent, or that's the...
Absolutely, and that's another feather under my cap as well. So, I became interculturally sensitive at a very young age because I had to learn to adapt to the different communication styles from the different ethnic, the girls from the different ethnic backgrounds. So I went to an all-girls secondary school as well, and so I went on to 3rd level where I got my first degree in mathematics from University of Benin, Nigeria.
Wow.
And so I started working in a bank, and at that time I got married. And shortly after I got married, I left Nigeria for Ireland for personal reasons.
Okay, so how old would you have been coming to Ireland?
25. 25 years young then, and it seems like a lifetime ago.
Still look 25, let's be fair.
Oh, well, thank you.
So where did your life start in Ireland?
In Longford. I keep getting asked why Longford. I guess because I knew I was going to be mayor Hardly. But I couldn't tell you why I picked Longford, but I think, I suppose it's fate that led me to Longford. And I have had nothing but positive experiences from living in Longford, thankfully. Hearing stories of people's lived experiences has been quite an eye-opener for me and makes me even more grateful to my Longford community for embracing me so readily and helping me, I suppose, to integrate in the Longford community. So I had my 3 children in Mullingar Hospital. They went to the local schools, which I got involved in as well. Again, because I was interculturally sensitive, I knew straight away what I had to do when I settled in Longford in terms of integrating in the community, interacting, getting involved in my children's schools, in different community groups. I was involved in church. I read at Mass once a month. I was involved in the local GAA club, so I have a shared experience as well.
Did you feel like you had to change who you were in order to integrate?
No, I didn't. I just, it was a case where we were getting to know each other. So I was sharing my culture and I was assimilating, embracing the Irish culture as well. And I suppose I focused on taking the best and marrying them. Again, I was conscious that my children are going to be exposed to largely to the Irish culture in school. So it was very important for me to learn so that I can, give them a balanced experience and support them. I remember once one of my children asked me to help with an Irish homework, and I said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you there." And he said, "What? You didn't do Irish in school?" So
you're not on your own there. And I mean, there's one for everyone in the audience with that. My son goes to a Gael school, and I did Irish in school, and I still can't understand half the stuff I'm reading in his books. I don't feel bad. So you told me a beautiful story. We're in the playground. You're pushing your son or daughter?
My daughter.
And who do you meet? What happens?
So a man came along with his daughter, the same age as mine. I think our girls were 2 at the time, and my boys were playing their rugby game. So he was at the swing next to me. We were pushing our daughters, and we started a conversation. And we just chatted. He told me his wife's dad was very ill, and the family was struggling. So he took their little girl, their only child at that time, to give her some space to rest. And so we got to meet each other for the first time, and we met each other subsequently then at different parts of town. I got to meet his wife, and
ultimately we became friends.
We became family friends, and that was over 10 years ago. And then fast forward to 2016, the same person got me involved in politics, and the man I met at the swings happened to be Joe Flaherty, TD, who's a member of the Dáil. So again, you don't know where life is going to take you. Don't know who you're going to meet. It's almost
like you hit Ireland and you were brought to a certain destination for a reason, and you hit the ground running. You initially worked. What were you doing? Sales?
Yes, I worked in sales. I worked in project management and product management for an oil and gas manufacturer.
And then you began your volunteer work in politics. But you said it was because you saw a gap. What did you see that we were missing within politics?
So in terms of my community involvement, I would have been very involved with the African community and Irish community groups in the town. And from my political activism then, when I joined the party, I had no intention of becoming, a public representative. I saw another community essentially in Longford that I could engage with and build my network. Yeah. And so I realized from engaging in those exercises that a lot of the issues that as Africans, I was hearing from my African community that they didn't get access to services, different opportunities. On this side, they were, we have all these services, we don't have people taking them up. So I knew there was a silo there.
Give me an idea of what kind of things you're talking about that they felt they were lacking or not being able to avail of.
Training opportunities then to maybe upskill or reskill a business, or social activities. that are specific to Africans, because socioeconomic participation is so important for a balanced lifestyle, So
what do you think the reason behind them feeling hard to access these things was?
I think it was just the silos in terms of the information of where to access the services, how to access, who to help you, get to from point A to B. So when I saw that was the gap, it wasn't a case where these supports and these services weren't available, it's just we didn't know where to go for it. And that's how Longford Africans Network came to be. So we were...
Can you give me an idea of examples of what you guys did there to help it be more accessible for them?
So when the Longford Africans Network was set up, and so with the support of my friends in Longford as well, because you need people for these ideas to take life.
Of course,
And so what we did was we started, engaging in the different aspects of the community. So we registered the group with the Public Participation Network, who are essentially the middlemen between local authorities and communities. And through African Network, we now have a presence in different committees that are chaired by the local authorities, so that we can funnel our ideas and our issues when policies are being developed, when decisions are being made. We are being considered as a cohort within the community.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you were witnessing policies being made about migrants, but yet no migrants being involved in the policy making.
Absolutely. So that was another thing. So Longford was coming up with an integration strategy for 5 years. And so when I did my political internship and shadowed a local councillor in 2018, that's thanks to the Immigrant Council of Ireland, a very hardworking not-for-profit organisation who look after trying to increase migrant participation in politics. So it was a 4-month program, and I shadowed the councillor at council meetings, at different events. And so I heard motions being brought up by councillors, and I thought, geez, this is a space that we need to be, because this is where our issues will be brought up. This is where, what's plaguing us as a community, we can have those things addressed, so that we're not just, complaining or, there isn't a solution.
That there's real life experiences going into this project to make it worthwhile, so that there are, concerns and issues are being addressed that migrants themselves have.
Yes.
And you mentioned that your journey, you hadn't really saw yourself going in the political route, but, and this is a 2-part question in a way, because you're a female, but you're also a black female in a predominantly white country and a predominantly male-run area. What is it like, and what has it been like for you to step foot into that position as councillor and as Lord Mayor?
It has been very educating. It's been a real eye-opener, and it is hard work. That is one thing I have to say. And I have an appreciation for the work that's been done by local authorities. I have an appreciation for my colleagues as councillors. We get to hear the issues of the people in the community, and we get to take those issues and act on them and look for solutions. And we have to keep going, because if somebody comes to me with an issue, 5 people can come to me with an issue in a day, but those are 5 different people, and for each person their issue is the most important.
Of course,
so it's up to me to make sure that I try to, as much as possible, to address as many issues as I can. If not, I'm going to hear about it from all 5 people. So, and it's hard work, and then, all of us councillors are going to the same resource within the council to get all our issues on behalf of the residents addressed. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of learning. Thankfully, there's training that is being given to councillors regularly to help us, to help us understand new policies. We had a Housing for All plan recently launched by the Housing Minister. to get the granular detail of those plans and to understand how it impacts on our roles and how the laws are going to be affected as well, and so that we can help to disseminate that information to our to the grassroots community.
It's obviously so important that there is somebody that's representing every kind of community. So maybe the people in the community don't access everything themselves, but they have somebody from their community feeding back and being able to say, hey guys, this is how you do this, this is where you get this information, and so on. For us to get a more diverse, to be more diverse within the political realm here in Ireland, what do you think we have to do?
It's a two-way thing, in my opinion, and so one of it is that political parties have to be more intentional in targeting community groups. I say this all the time, there's no shortage of talent, there's no shortage of expertise within migrant communities. The people that have wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience, that can add value to political parties in terms of, developing policies, in terms of activating communities and migrant groups, because if people have chosen Ireland as their home, they should be assisted and supported to make life whole. We look at COVID and how we've all had to come together to fight this pandemic. If one person is left behind, that person can reinfect everybody again. So, we have to work together. And COVID also, brought to the fore the marginalized groups, the people that have been left behind, essentially. And we're having to now work to target those groups and make sure that they are looked after and make sure that they're brought along. So in terms of politics, political parties have to, reach out to those new Irish communities and make sure that they are brought into the party, they're made to feel welcome, as I have been. And then the onus is on migrants as well to get involved, get to know. And I think another appreciation I have from becoming very active in politics is how accessible politicians are in Ireland. So politicians want to be contacted. They want people to come to them. They want to feel like they are doing their job, and that's how they do it. So I encourage migrants as well to get involved, get to know your local reps, check in on them and find out how they can help with issues. Even if, like I always say to people, even outside my Longford community, if you need help, come to me. If I can't help you, or if you're outside my area, I'll get you in touch with a councillor I know or a TD I know in your constituency, and they can help you. But it has to be a two-way thing.
You mentioned that, so if there are areas where we're seeing a lack of diversity, there are lots. So within the government and state jobs generally, you would see like education, the Gardaí, and you talked about directing and targeting those groups. Like, it's not really good enough anymore to just say, well, people aren't applying for the positions, what are we supposed to do? The answer is that we headhunt people, almost like you have women in STEM programs that will go to schools and are specifically speaking to just the females in the schools in order to have a more diverse range of women in these fields. Do you feel it goes without saying that the same kind of idea needs to take place in Ireland, but in terms of getting more diverse people to access these education fields?
Yeah, absolutely. Like my 12-year-old said to me a couple of weeks ago, I don't know why there aren't black teachers in her school. That's something so fundamental. Like how many, the percentages of African children in the schools at first level, second level. Like we have people that are graduating from universities. We have people that had teaching backgrounds from their countries of origin. So there is that expertise. So it is
Where are they going? Where?
Exactly. I have my neighbor is Romanian, and she was a teacher in Romania before she qualified as a teacher, and now she's working in a GP practice. So even
her degree wasn't recognized. Is that?
I think so. I haven't really had that in-depth conversation with her, but I'm sure she would welcome the opportunity to have a teaching career in Ireland. So, you know, those are opportunities that we can tap into. You know, we're talking about the shortage of support teachers in secondary. You know, and then we have this talent just laying waste and people having to change careers just to be financially independent and contribute to economic growth in their respective communities. So why not take advantage of that that resource that's there and it's just waiting to be tapped into?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the saying, if you can see it, you can be it. So for your daughter, and I would have said the same thing, I recall too never seeing myself reflected in my teachers throughout my education. I've never had a teacher, a black teacher, or I don't even think a person of colour of any kind as a teacher, but yet I ended up being a teacher. But I had to see that into fruition in my own mind, because I couldn't say, because of, you know, Mrs. O'Toole, she as a African-Irish woman has accomplished A, B, or C, like I can look up to her and I want to follow in her footsteps, which might not sound like a big deal for people, but if you can actually put yourself in, let's say, your children's shoes, and they are constantly not seeing themselves represented in the media, in their reading materials, in you know, in state positions, in the government, in school. You know, in places of leadership and administration, that can have a great effect on a child.
Absolutely. And if you think about, you know, when African youth are being portrayed online, it's always for something negative. You know, that kind of people can imbibe that this is the expectation. You know, so we need to change the narrative. If we want our future to be secure, if we want our future to be better, we have to show that, like you have rightly said. So we need to show, you know, an African guard or a Romanian guard or a Polish guard or a Romanian teacher, an African teacher, Lithuanian teacher.
And if we don't have them, we need to recruit them.
Yeah, and I give you an example for the in the primary school through the Longford Africans Network. We had, for Black History Month, we had a day in the school where we asked the African children to bring the African attire and dress up at one stage of school. We asked parents to make African snacks, and they brought into the school, and we had a presentation. So I did up information on different African countries, sent it to the liaison teacher, and they gave a country to each class. And they all came into the hall at the end of the day, and the children did a dance. I sent a dance video, and they lent a few steps, and they did that. It was like the African kids were alive. Like, they were so happy. The kids were, you know, the other children were coming around them. Oh, is this your dress?
Yes, I think it's so important.
An Eastern European child came up to me and said, "Oh, this was wonderful. I can't wait for our own day in school." And I passed that on to the liaison
It's so important.
teacher.
And that is living and breathing within the culture of the school. Diversity and inclusion, not just a week or a month of it, but it's something that is deeply ingrained in the school. Uruemu, you were just absolutely amazing today. Thank you so much for your input and your clarity in so many different areas that we may not have really understood. I hope you continue your work. I have no doubt that you will, and perhaps will be the first black minister we've had ever in Ireland. Female black minister. And so the best of luck with everything, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uruemu, a hand, please. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Uruemu. Now, next, I'm delighted to welcome academic and researcher, PhD student at Maynooth University and Irish Research Council scholar, Lilian Nwanze. How are you, Lilian?
Hi, I'm very well.
Last but not least, huh? Yes. Did we save the best for last?
I hope so.
I think so. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So you were born and raised in Nigeria. You were in your 20s when you moved here to Ireland. Tell me about your experiences from day one.
Yeah, so I was born in Nigeria. I qualified as a barrister and solicitor of Nigeria. and practiced for about 7 years. Then I moved into, still practicing law, I moved into KPMG Professional Services and also practiced for a couple of years, then got married. My husband got a job in Ireland, so I had to move to Ireland.
So you're a qualified lawyer.
Yes, fully qualified.
From Nigeria, and
Yes.
you had quite a good job, am
Yep.
I right? And so your husband got a position in Ireland as a doctor, and
Yes.
you...
And I had to, of course, join him. We just got married, so I had to join him to start
The
a
things
family.
we do.
The things
for
we
our
do,
men.
indeed. So yeah, I came as a high flyer. So I did well
Okay.
academically. I was
Yes.
doing very well on my job, progressing. And so I just expected that when I came into Ireland,
You would follow suit.
I mean,
Continue
yeah, I
your
was
life,
coming
your
to
journey.
give of myself. But then I came and there was silence. And I came from high flyer to nobody. Nobody knew me. And I wasn't going anywhere anyways. So there was silence that had a massive impact on my self-esteem, my mental health. And then I enrolled for my master's. So yes, my degree was recognized, because I get that question a lot. They were happy to recognize my degree from Nigeria because I was paying 15,000 euro for a master's.
So they recognized it for you to continue
Absolutely.
and further your education, but
Yes.
not to practice law.
Not to practice or do any other thing, not just law, any other thing. I mean, I was coming with experience, legal experience, accounting experience, nothing, silence. I couldn't get anything. I couldn't even get the foot in the door for one interview.
An interview even.
So yeah, I did my master's, and maybe because I'm in education, my experience in that institution is very, very, I like to share it. So I spent 1 year in that institution. I'm not even joking. No one spoke to me. No teacher spoke to me. No student spoke to me.
Are you serious?
When they would say, go into groups, I would usually be the last person. So no one wanted me in the group.
And why
I
do you
don't
think
know
that
whether
was?
that, I think it had something to do with, it's just a perception of some ability or otherwise. So they probably thought.
Based on what?
So I think accent is a big thing.
Okay.
I think we don't talk about it, but accent is a big thing. So the minute you speak, there is a perception. She's speaking English with an accent.
Yeah.
Perhaps she's a dummy or
Yeah.
has nothing to offer.
Right.
So I got that a lot. So I went through that whole 1 year, no interaction. And I was also afraid. Remember, I was just coming in from Nigeria. I was also afraid to kind of
very
interact.
unsure of your
I wasn't
surroundings.
sure. And now as an educator, I'm alarmed because no educator tried to pull me in. No educator tried to give me more of an experience. I paid 15,000 euro for that, for silence. But I graduated eventually. I graduated with a first class from that, and still nothing. I still couldn't get anything, even with a first class.
You mentioned somebody saying to you that they were shocked by how well you did.
Absolutely, I get that all the time. Oh, wow, a first class from XYZ University, and there's the shock.
And the undertone of racism. So it's indirectly, I'm kind of surprised you were smart enough, no offense, to have been able to get that degree.
Yeah, and I find that usually when we speak about racism, what people think about is racial slurs and the N-word.
The real obvious stuff.
Yes, the real obvious stuff is the smallest part of racism. For if I can get a person who will look me in the face and call me the N-word, I understand that person. But if I have someone who isn't calling me the N-word, but it's not letting me get past the door, I can't do anything about that person. That is the kind of racism that I have seen and I'm worried about. I can count on one hand how many times anyone has been outrightly mean to me. I don't get that all the time. I'm not a very outdoor kind of person anyway, but I don't get that all the time.
But the subtle racism, the racism that you've seen systematically in your pursuit for a career, even in education. So, so you're doing your PhD at the moment and you're doing it in education. Will you talk to me a bit about the topic that you've decided to do? Because it's come from your own experience.
Yes. So I'm researching the experiences Black women have with racism and how they bring that into the classroom. The background is when I come into the classroom, I don't drop my life at the door. I come in a sum total of everything that I have gone through. So I'm not investigating the racism the women have faced in the class. I'm investigating their life. What have you experienced? And quite a number of them would tell me, oh, no, I've never experienced racism, yet they couldn't get their qualifications recognized. What do they think that is? I have a few who say, no, I haven't. The Irish have been nice, and the Irish really are very nice people. But racism has nothing to do with intention, has nothing to do with niceness. So I get a lot of that. But I see women who are speaking about the burden of a double consciousness, who are one thing in front of their white friends and are other things at home, and they are exhausted by this act.
I want you to stop there because I want you to say that again, that double consciousness. Explain that again, because I think this is raw. This is something that might not actually cross other people's minds, because instead of living just one life, we're living two nearly. Just explain that concept again.
Okay, so this is a theme because I'm at the stage where I'm organizing my data. So this is a theme that has come up in practically every single interview I've had. And the women are speaking about the burden of a double consciousness. So I have women who are American. They're not all African. I have an American who is black.
So African-American.
African-American, absolutely.
Okay.
So the women are saying, we carry with us a double identity. When I'm with my white friends, I act a certain way so that I can be accepted and so that, I can just go through life. And then I get back home and I act a certain way. One said to me, oh my God, just thinking about this now, I feel like a fake. I feel like a fraud. Now, this is not something I haven't felt. So I'm not telling you something out there. But I'm saying a lot of women are carrying this with them, that I have to change the way I speak. One said to me, she's a medical student. No, she's a medical doctor now. She came in as a student. She said, I get asked, sorry, can you say that again? Like 10 times in one sentence. So I switched my accent, and I understand. I don't have another accent. I still speak like a Nigerian, but it's exhausting. And I can't fault anyone for not hearing what I'm saying. I'm just saying it is exhausting. So for someone else, it got so exhausting that the person had to change the way the person spoke. And these women are saying to me, honestly, it's a burden. This double consciousness. One told me this burden started when I was 5. I would go to school and find out that even the showering etiquette is different. So I would pretend to understand what they're talking about. And as flippant as this sounds, it is a burden. I am 37 years old. I know how exhausted I feel when I get back in.
Of course.
And I have only started to be my true self very recently, now that I've started studying.
Lilian's not actually your first name.
No, and
That's
I like to tell that story.
Yeah.
I like to tell the story of how I became Lilian. Actually, Lilian is my first name, but I was never called Lilian. So everyone who knew me from Nigeria knew me as Ngozi. So I am, in my passport, I have Lilian Nwanze Akobo. Okay. But I was called Ngozi in Nigeria.
So
Ngozi
that
is an Igbo
the name you went by.
That's my name.
Your whole life.
Absolutely.
Until
I graduated from law school and I sat in front of my black boss, a big law firm.
in Nigeria.
African boss, and he said to me, oh, I like you. After the interview, I will give you this job. What name do you go by? Because he's looking at my CV and I have all my names.
Right.
And I said, Ngozi, and he does this. No, you will go by Lilian because it will be easier for our white clients. And that's how I became Lilian. I didn't even think to question it.
Yeah.
But I like to tell this story now because it shows the extent to which even black people have imbibed white supremacist thinking, because this is the root of racism. The fact that someone thinks that I'm better than another person because of color.
Yeah, and even we were chatting earlier, and your recollection of being on a Zoom call, and you looked up at all the other people's boxes, and you said, "I'm so ugly, I'm disgusting," and I think that resonated with me. I have felt that way. You're the only black person there, and it just goes to show how deep systematic racism goes, that even we ourselves feel those things about ourselves that, you know, that racists think, or the ideals that racists have, we also have taken them on board as our own feelings about our own selves and our community.
Emer, I would always say that except you were born and whisked away into seclusion, you will have internalized white supremacist thinking. We've been socialized into it. And so dealing with this issue, deconstructing it, is not, you see, it's not just by putting up pictures of black people in the university, or
us having this conversation.
Or us having this conversation, or putting two people on a panel of people of color. Yeah. It goes beyond that, because what happens is that we do that and things go back to normal afterwards. Yeah. Yeah. We must deconstruct this identity. We must check how we have internalized it, deal with it before we move forward. If not, we will keep replicating these same things. Absolutely. It will be a vicious cycle. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, I often remember, I went to the States when I was 18 to play basketball, and I remember being there, and this is just in terms of the double consciousness and wanting to change yourself to fit in, but I remember being told by the African-American girls on my team, on my basketball team, that I spoke like a white person. And we're kind of joking before the show started today that it's so funny, because on the outside, people will look at me and say that I'm not Irish, or automatically just assume that I'm not Irish. Yet I'm born and raised here by a Wexford mum from a small village. I know, like, I've eaten the same food that everybody here eats. I've gone through the same education system. And they were right in the sense that I speak like a white person because I grew up in a predominantly white country, but for them, they found that really hard to understand, that I spoke and acted like a white person but didn't look like one. And I found myself in a limbo of being too white to be black, but being too black to be white. And this is a kind of a limbo that you then struggle with your identity, or what you want to grasp onto, and invest in your culture and not forget who you are or where you're from as well. What do you think going forward would you like people to know? What do you think, because we talked about baby steps, right? We said the first thing you got to do is look at yourself, look at your own privilege. And we're talking about privilege, not that you had money, that you had food on the table, that you had electricity or education. We're talking about the privilege that you have to say something like, I don't see colour. Well, that is a privilege for you, because I do see colour and you do see colour, because we live it every day. It's one aspect of my body I will never, ever be able to change. So that is a privilege of yours to be able to say that. It is also your privilege that you can walk down the street and somebody might not cross over onto the other side, or that you might be in a shop looking at stuff and all of a sudden you find the security guard is behind you and is eyeballing you as you walk around. You know, it's your privilege that because somebody reads your name on your CV and sees, I can't pronounce that. Next. You know, what do you want people to know? What is your first steps, second steps, and just life journey to education on this?
First step, you've already said, if a person truly, or organization is truly interested in anti-racist practice, check how you have internalized it. And you can only do this by listening to the voice of color. Because if I hadn't spoken about a double identity, for instance, I can bet you that the average white person wouldn't know this. Yeah. So first of all, check within yourself, whether as white, I often tell educators, even black educators, you must check within yourself how much of this you've internalized. Then you listen to the voice of color. And the first step continues throughout your lifetime. Remember, we've been socialized all our lives to get to this stage. So you can't just check how much racism you've internalized for 2 days and go on. No, you must.
This is a life journey.
You must constantly keep checking and keep naming it. The third thing I will say is, let's divorce racism from intention or nastiness. Now, as an adult educator, it is extremely important that we deal with those things, using racial slurs and things. But it is fundamentally faulty to keep on thinking that racism, so if I ask you, have you experienced racism, and you say no because no one has called me a racial slur, there's a problem. It doesn't allow us deal with the major issues. So yes, I would say that. I would also say the colorblind ideology is deeply damaging. I think people need to hear that. It sounds benign when you say, oh, I don't see color, I treat everybody the same. But it's deeply damaging. We need you to see color because we are colored. So you can't say, you can't be anti anything if you refuse to see the thing. So if you're going to be anti-racist, you need to see racism. First, and if you're going to see racism, you need to see race. So color blindness is deeply damaging because what it does is that it says, Lilian, I hear you. You say you've gone through racism and things like that. But look, I don't want to know about that. I'm just going to treat you the same way. It puts me on a level playing field with people that I am not ordinarily on a level playing field with.
You're being gaslighted as well. You know, your
Absolutely.
experience isn't worthy. I'm going to have to wrap it up, but you've been a wealth of knowledge, Lilian, and your experiences and the way you can verbalize your experiences is just, it's so easy to be able to divulge that information. Such a weighty topic, but you've spoken so eloquently about it, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, we are going to actually welcome the whole panel back in, guys, if you want to come in. Is everybody enjoying themselves? Yeah? Feeling like we're getting a bit of education? I think that is key, you know. At the end of the day, people within the Black community, it's not up to us to have to educate other people on racism. There's so much out there for you to do that yourself. Would I be right? Yeah. So, do we have a microphone? The roving microphone? If you want to raise your hand, if you have a question for any of our three guests or myself, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to be getting messages in from our online viewers as well, so keep them coming in, please, would be great. We've got a question down here in the front. Well done, guys. Thank you so much. You are absolutely brilliant.
It's good.
Really and truly. Okay.
Sorry, this is a quick question for all the panel.
Okay, do you want to just say your name?
My name's Lee Donnelly.
Hey.
This is a question for the whole panel. Before you came back to Ireland, I found it very... What was your life back like in your own countries before you came back?
That's a really good question. Do you guys travel back home or not? Well, I know not of probably the last
I've been back, say, about 3 times now. And the first time I went back, it felt like nothing changed. It felt like it was the exact same as when I was little. So all the memories started falling back into place. And then recently when I went back, it's nearly 5 years now, like the country is developing so much. There's loads of things happening. There's people coming from actually America over to, try to build the country and change it a bit. And then we have a new president as well, who's a soccer player, George Weah. And so the country is, is developing. So, it's somewhere that I'm going to want to travel back from a lot more.
And help.
And help out as well, exactly.
What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. Pretty much the same. I've been back to Nigeria a couple of times. Last time I was back was actually for my youngest brother's wedding in 2019, shortly after the election exercise. So it was a welcome break for me. And home had changed. Home in Nigeria had changed. I often think of myself as one with 2 homes: one home in Ireland and one home in Nigeria.
Exactly.
So it's a lot different to what it was when I left back in 2003. Yes.
Yeah, because Boidu, I did say, have you been back home? You have 2 homes. You feel Ireland is your home, and Liberia is your home.
Yeah.
Ireland is your home, and Nigeria is your home. And would you feel the same, Lilian?
Absolutely.
So have you been home over the course of your period?
Yes, sadly, I lost my dad in 2016, so I had to go back, but I haven't gone back since then. But it, like them, it's home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. And just... people have a kind of an idea, I think, of of the continent of Africa, and forget that it's maybe not what you might think in your head. Like when you think of Lagos, like high-rise buildings, massive amounts of money, fancy cars, like a lot of people don't necessarily know that side. We've grown up with the, how about a penny in the box for the black children in Africa, you know? So I think it's really important, and it's amazing to see such educated people and to try and break down those stereotypes that people have when they see a black person or a person of colour. Have we any other questions in the audience? We've got a question over here, thank you. And then I'm looking here, we also have some questions from online, so we'll get those too.
How are you going? Brendan is my name. I'm a Mullingar man, actually, and we're neighbours, actually, of Longford. So I just want to ask our neighbour there, why is there a conception that Mullingar is probably a better town, actually, than Longford? Like, anyone would say, like, you know, there's better everything in Mullingar than there is in Longford. And also, politically wise, we were well aware that you are a mayor and a councillor in Longford. But do you think that you will actually go further and maybe challenge to be a TD or maybe a senator in the future?
Yeah, I think the main difference between not just Mullingar but the entire county of Westmeath compared to Longford is the size of both counties, and in fact in 2016 we didn't return any TDs for Longford, and that was to our detriment in that political dispensation, because when you don't have it's just like the absence of migrants in positions of authority. When you're not there, you're kind of like an afterthought, and I think that was the over time, that's how Longford has suffered from the lack of representation. And if you look at Mullingar, the amount of industry that's in Mullingar compared to Longford, there's a big gap in that. And I suppose in my role as mayor, I'm trying to attract industry to Longford, because economic growth is very important for a community. We need to get industry there. We need to get people working locally so that, you know, our children, when they go off to college, I'm conscious my eldest is in University of Limerick now in his second year. What job is going to be there for him when he graduates? I want him to be able to, you know, live next to me, even though he wouldn't want to do that. But just to have that choice, you know, it's so important for Longford. And in terms of my career as a politician, I very much would like to advance my career in politics, and there are a lot of options. There's the Dáil, there's the Seanad, there's the EU as well. So those are opportunities, and I'm more than happy to explore. I would be very honoured to be able to serve my country of Ireland in any of those capacities, definitely.
Great question. Thank you, Brendan. Now, I'm just going to one online question here for you, Lilian. When will your research be available to read?
2 years.
2 years.
Please, God.
Okay, but I think we should be keeping our eye on you nonetheless. Okay, so I think we're going to go into our Menti. Is that where we want to go, guys? Or I have a couple more questions. Will I fire ahead here with these questions, or shall we move on? Go ahead. Okay, perfect. Go ahead. Okay, Boidu, this is for you. Are we doing enough in sport to encourage participation from all backgrounds?
Yeah, there is. There's stuff being done underage. It's development. It's starting from the underage up. Like when I was playing, it wasn't happening, but you can see now that there is, even in my little area, there is on the Salmon Seeker home. And the coaches from there will go over and, you know, share their voices to them and tell them, you know, bring their kids down to training, under 6s, under 11s, just to be included in the community. And I can feel that happening in a lot of different places as well.
That's brilliant.
And
I love to
of course,
hear
you have another black person who is so involved in her GA club as well. So there is stuff happening.
Good.
Around the place.
That's really good to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, Uruemu, this is for you. What can we do to encourage women, in particular women of colour, to get involved in politics?
Yeah, so that's an area I am very, very passionate about. And one of the hats I wear, particularly within my party of Fianna Fáil, is as the secretary of the Fianna Fáil Women's Network. So what we have been doing is organising events targeting women and dealing with women's issues. So the Me Too from the military, we would have reached out to the group. We would have issued communique to support and to stand with the women in the military that had those experiences, and we would have made policy recommendations to our party members of government, especially those leading departments. And so we are encouraging women, and we're reaching out to the different commons and the different CDCs to identify women and encourage them and give them the support to be able to run. Like I said, there's no shortage of talent within the female gender in terms of leadership and in terms of political representation. So all of those things we're doing, and I suppose I would like to make an open call now to women. And the thing is that we have a lot of women that are working in volunteer capacity, doing those jobs that they could very well be public representatives. So I would like to encourage women who are passionate about the community to get involved. If there's an issue that if you take an issue with the behaviour or the activities of politicians in your area, that is a call to action to get involved, put your name out there, maybe join a party, maybe go independent, but get involved. We need to increase the number of women in politics. And I just yesterday we had in the international news, the first Swedish Prime Minister was appointed, and less than 24 hours she resigned. So it was kind of like a short-lived
win.
And it was so sad. But even that brief period, like, she made history, albeit short-lived. But it's still encouraging that you can get there. And I suppose we need to keep working and marking those wins as encouragement, as boosts for more women to get politically active.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to move on. I have loads more questions here, and I'm sure you guys in the audience do too. But we are running out of time. So what we want to do now is we're actually going to move on to menti.com. If you haven't heard of it, it's very straightforward. So if you can go into your internet provider, your browser, and go into a window, and if you type in www.menti.com, what this will do will bring you to a website, and here you can enter some ideas for us, because again, we're pushing to get 10,000 ideas for research to be able to give to our the committee and then put forth a document. So this is our time to have a say for what we want our tax money to go into, different areas that may have stuck out to you, either to do with tonight's conversation or, and anything else really. So there's the code. It'll ask you to put in the code 24499459, or you can take a picture of the QR code. If you take a picture of the QR code, it'll bring you right up. Were we all sorted? Perfect. Okay, so what we want to hear from you, and with today's discussion in mind, what do you see as a challenge? So this is my question to you, okay? What do you see as a challenge or opportunity that research could help with? So this is for you, the audience here live, and for you, the audience at home. In connection with our chat this evening, what do you see as a challenge or opportunity that research could help with? So if you want to, in your Menti, put that in there. And we've already got some inputs now, brilliant stuff. Okay, so we have how differences should be celebrated. I 100% agree, and I would agree that it's something that should be ingrained in organizations, not you mentioned somebody doing something maybe that one time, but not actually investing in it you know. So that's important. Better social integration. Longitudinal studies have Irish become more accepting of cultures. What would you say to that, Lilian?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Would you agree that we as a country are really engaging with other communities and ethnic minority groups and their cultures?
I would say yes, but then I'll remind you of the research I told you about that showed now that the white Irish can mask these things. So if we're doing research, it may come across as though everything is okay, but research has found that now people can mask racist feelings. So I don't know.
Yeah, okay. You're on the fence.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Let's see. The role of GAA. What role does GAA play in building a community? Boidu, I'll come to you with that one.
It's a huge role. It's one of the biggest sports in Ireland. It's like the GAA kind of means a lot more than a lot of people think. It's probably one of the thing that makes communities. People get together to create their GAA team, and making that team makes them a community because they're so invested in it.
Sense of belonging.
So I think the GAA is very, very important for community.
It's hugely important, I would agree. Yeah. Why is racism growing in Ireland? Uruemu, I'm going to come to you with that.
Good question.
It is a good question.
I think...
or do you think it is?
From my own lived experience, I would say it isn't. However, I'm conscious that, everybody has a different lived experience, and I have to acknowledge that. And if it is the experience or the opinion of somebody else, I have to acknowledge that, there has to be a reason why that opinion has been brought to the fore. What I know is that we now have an opportunity to air our experiences, and a lot of things that are happening are like, when incidents happen, they go live almost immediately. So we are aware of it.
Yes.
So I don't think it's a case where it's increasing. It's just the awareness or the breaking news of what just happened. Whereas in the past, we wouldn't have got to know, or by the time we get to know, it's not as significant as when it's just initially happened. But I think it is helping as well. It's keeping this issue alive because it's an issue that needs to be resolved. So sometimes when change is about to happen, it looks like, it's the lowest ebb and it's the worst case of these instances. So I think we are approaching a turning point in Ireland in terms of tackling racism and tackling racist behaviour and unconscious bias and discrimination. So I've been accused of being too optimistic, but I would be...
How would you feel when I say something like, perhaps it's not growing in Ireland, but in fact has always been here? It's just that people are now more aware of it.
Exactly.
Because I feel like once you see what we're talking about, you will never be able to unsee it again. You'll see the small little things that happen in the office where somebody says, oh, I hate when so-and-so puts her ethnic food in the microwave, the whole place does be stinking. Just little things here and there. I really do believe that once you do that self-reflection and you find yourself, because I don't think there are many people that could put their hand up and say that I've never been racist, I've never said something that would be classified as racist. And to be able to stand back and reflect on those things, once you do that, going forward in your life, you will never unsee it. You will never unsee the black ugly duckling, things that are the black sheep of the family, all of these different connotations that are so surrounded and connected to being black.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if it's growing or if it's just because of the work that people have been doing with Black Lives Matter in the last 2 years. It's brought it to the forefront. I myself never spoke out about racism because I felt like I was already different enough as it was. The last thing I wanted to do was bring more attention to myself and the fact that I'm different.
Yeah.
What would you feel about that? Do you know that it is actually just something that people are more aware of now?
Yeah, I think it's always been there. Yeah, it's definitely always been there. But even like speaking to some of my friends from college, the younger people, like they'd say, you know, I've been getting stuff like that since I was 10, 11. I just haven't been able to talk about it or to say it to anyone or to make it an issue. Because if they made it an issue back then, it would have just been brushed under the table and would have been like, stop talking shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you can actually say something and something might be done about it. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
what's changed.
absolutely. Now, if you would like to participate in creating our future, I feel like this is a time for us all to have a voice on what kind of research we want to be seen done. You can go to creatingourfuture.ie. You can submit your ideas there. It is open up until the 30th of November. The last date and time, so midnight that night, is the last time to be able to submit your entry. So please, let's make this something that we can feel ownership of and get your thinking caps get your thinking caps thinking. Put them on. I want to thank our guests so much. You were absolutely fabulous. You made yourself extremely vulnerable in areas, and sharing your story and advice, your research, your work is so vital to keep this conversation going and to create a better future, hence creating our future. Thank you so much to the audience online and also in person, and I hope that we can all take something from this evening. Thank you to the Mermaid here in Bray, and I hope you have a great evening.
Creating Our Future is an opportunity for you to tell us what researchers in Ireland should explore to create a better future. Every day, world-class researchers in Ireland are generating new knowledge and are making discoveries that impact our lives. This is your chance to let them know what is important to you. How can you get involved? The most important thing you can do is submit an idea that you think could inspire researchers. To do that, simply go to creatingourfuture.ie and tell us your idea. Then, talk about it. Share your ideas with friends, family, and colleagues and encourage them to do the same. You can also join the many conversations with researchers and others at some of the events being hosted online and in person all over the country. What happens next? Every idea will be read. Independent experts from a broad range of backgrounds will shape the ideas into a report for government. The report will act as a book of inspiration for researchers and government. It will help to ensure that the research that matters to you is being carried out. Join Ireland's biggest brainstorm by visiting creatingourfuture.ie and tell us what researchers in Ireland should explore to create a better future.